Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In. We are brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. I actually threw that read away about 50 episodes ago, GT. I've got it burned into the brain now. And Mark is on the train. So our viewership numbers in the 60 to 79 category will probably be down dramatically this week.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's back to school, man. How is it at Grandview?
Kids report here this week. We'll have our little social gathering here on Friday. Just basically welcome to campus type stuff. And then from there, we will then go on to, basically school on Monday.
Gotcha. Another good group, big group again.
Always, man. It's always good to have these guys around, and yeah.
This stuff keeps you young, right? Just being around those guys. And I feel like I learned a lot of the sayings from my friends that are significantly younger than me. And obviously you, every chance you can, point out that you're younger than me, but they're younger than you. So I feel like that's where you get a lot of how people are saying things these days, right?
Oh, once again, it keeps you young, and it keeps you, into the world of the college guys. And it's this is fun. They keep you, they definitely keep you young and keep you on your toes for sure.
Right. And their font size is a lot smaller.
100%.
Way more messages, way more words in a single screen. So anyway, let's get started. We'll start out with BWA releasing a statement saying Ryan Mango is not going to be the executive director. I was at Mango's wedding. I know he was looking forward to it. I think there were some logistical things that didn't work out. He is, I have a chance to speak to him. He's enrolled at the Kellogg School of Business at Northwestern. I feel like there might be an announcement fairly soon on where he might end up, but I'll probably talk to him about that. I know BWA is working on getting their, ducks in a row to be able to get whoever eventually comes on up, on-ramped and up and running right away. It's a shame it didn't work out. It felt like it was a good fit. Mango very well from USA Wrestling. I know him from St. Louis. Really, really bright guy. Somebody who's going to succeed at pretty much whatever he chooses to do in life. Great wrestling career. So he'll be fine. BWA, I think last week they were part of the headlines with the Kenny Monday hire. And, then that'll be interesting. We should probably get Kenny on Matt Chat, don't you think? I think that'd be fun.
That would be really fun. I think he'd be a great guy to spend some quality time, kind of understanding what his goals are, how he's going to approach this, from being, a longtime assistant, working with very high level people to, the figurehead of a program. Right. So I think it'd be really cool to have him on and talk through his process on that. And
yeah,
really nice.
I think it'd be interesting. Just like I think if you were a head coach tomorrow, if somebody hired you and you left Nike and had a salary where you could do that full time, how much, and I don't want to use the word steal, but how much did you take from Bobby Douglas? What did you take from Bobby Douglas? What did you take from Nick Mitchell? What do you take from Paul Reedy and Grant Henderson? You're compatriots, but still man, that guy is really good at that. I really like how he does that. And then how much is the Grant Turner sauce? This is how I want to put my stamp on the program. And I think that would be a fascinating conversation. I think that's a fascinating conversation with a lot of people. But the more you've swam in deep waters, I think I've sort of had that conversation with you about business because you run in the highest of circles. And that's awesome. For me, talking to CEOs and things like that, I feel like those people have made me smarter and, on how I run my business. Right. And we should all be co-opting, maybe is the right word, good ideas from other people that are really bright. So I'm glad we brought that up because I'm going to make a point to reach out to Kenny and try to get him on the show. Okay, let's go backwards first, then forward. U20 results. Let's start with Greco. We will call them men and women at 20. Sometimes I don't know if it's boys or girls and all that, but men and women. We had one medalist in the Greco, correct, GT?
Yep.
Bronze medalist heavyweight, and that kid did really well in Fargo too, right? Won Fargo, and then once, so he's young for 20, right? For
Yeah.
U20,
So I
right?
think he's a second year guy, out of I want to say California, but I'm not 100% sure. I know that there was another kid from California that did really well in Greco as well. But the world bronze medalist, he had some highlights, some great throws. Basically was, like down, I think it was like 8-2 or something like that. Bombed a dude, got a pin. So.
Yeah, Aiden Atau, right?
Yeah, he's 17.
Yeah. It says here he's from Kansas.
Yep. I think there was the other kid from California that was wearing the weird headgear.
Oh, that's the guy that wrestled for Gilroy.
Yep.
Yeah, he's at 92 kilos. Yeah.
Yep, and he was the one that like doubled up as well. I think went from Fargo and then right into it. So
yeah, we talked about him a couple weeks ago. Really smart kid. We heard like schools like Stanford are talking to him. Don't know much about this Atau kid yet. Heavyweight or 285, 275, whatever the weight class is, feels like the one weight class where Greco can be a fairly good indicator of how you're going to do in college. Because if you're a 57 kg guy and you're like Taylor Lamont, you're throwing people around, you go to the collegiate style and it helps you situationally, but it doesn't help you overall. So I think like those guys are very different in how they defend single legs. Like they try to bring you up. Like we used to say here in Missouri, like Illinois guys will bring you up. Missouri guys will push you down. And Missouri guys are going to try to sprawl, hit go behinds, front headlocks. Illinois are going to bring you up, put you in the throw positions, threaten you, score 4 or 5. I guess now it's 4 or 5 in high school, 4 or 6 in collegiate off of your shot, as opposed to just sprawling and maybe getting 2. But in Greco, where there's less shooting and there's more, heavyweight, where there's less shooting and more emphasis on pummeling, understanding inside position, getting guys to the edge, getting push out points that way, both in high school, both in college and in international style. It feels like this guy is being good at Greco should help him earn a scholarship more so than other weights. If you, as a guy who's still recruiting, do you see it that way or do you see it differently?
I think it's a mixed bag of between the academics and style, right? So like you can go and look for specific styles of technique, or even someone that could maybe fit into your wheelhouse of maybe coaching and things of that nature. But I think also like, just kind of a regular pound for pound conversation, like I'm gonna take the best available. Like, right. Like especially if they're close, like, hey man, I got a funky dude from Missouri who likes doing all sorts of weird stuff. If he's good, he's good. And like, you're like, well, hey, he wants to be here. There's a recipe for that as well.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of those Greco guys, Sebastian Lopez, who is the runner-up in Greco, is actually wrestling in border brawl against Samson Stillwell, who was the cadet Fargo champ. So we'll start putting some of those matchups out now. But, today is literally 30 days away from the event. So we're excited about that. We've sent the pictures of the Nike gear to those kids. Super fresh. Well done again, as usual, GT. U20 women. More success there. 3rd place as a team, 1st to 2nd, and a couple thirds, correct?
Yeah. Big showcase kind of on that front is Emmett Allure continues her dominant run at the age group categories. Just continues to produce, and then we'll now have her opportunity at the senior championships here at 72 kg. So yeah, all sorts of great, 2nd world title for her. Yeah. So just once again, wanted to highlight specifically her in that process, but yeah, also world silver medalist, Sophia, Katie Gomez got bronze, kind of a brand new girl to, I don't know, I would say collegiate wrestling, and then also international wrestling was the girl from Iowa, Wesleyan. She ended up getting, I believe, in the bronze medal match.
Finished 5th.
Yeah. No, she ended up getting bronze. So she did get bronze. Yeah. Couple other fifths as far as the team is concerned. And then Tristan Kelly got bronze as well up at heavyweight. So really, really good showing for the women at U20s. Couldn't be more excited for this age group.
Well, I mean, I don't think we're breaking news here, but the people that you're going to see in the next Olympic cycles are usually the people that have done well at age group along the way. Specifically, I mean, every once in a while, like a Jordan Burroughs pops up, that wasn't a monster at Fargo, but more likely it's the Jaden Coxes and the Kyle Snyders, that were dominating Fargo, wrestling each other in the Fargo finals, splitting in freestyle and Greco, these kind of things. And the other thing is, it's also a new game now. Like, I was talking to somebody about this. A kid has moved from St. Louis to a private school. Really good kid, top 20 kid in the country. And there's a bunch of ways to look at it. He's comes from a program that's really good here. And I think he tried to go from good to better. But like, I talked to a coach who was mad one of his kids left, and I know this guy. He opens the doors on November 1 and he closes the doors on February 28th, and he doesn't do anything with those kids in the spring and summer. And if I know there was some flashback photo of you a couple of weeks ago when you were like a state champ in high school, and obviously you worked, those were your goals, to be a multiple time state champ, to be a Division I wrestler, to be a Division I All-American, to be a Division I national champion. And you can't have penthouse goals and hang out with people that just want to hang out in the basement of the first floor and not put in the work. And so I think sometimes people, like, I think the kids drive this a lot of time. Like, look, my coach doesn't care that much. Like, as soon as it's over, he's going on spring break. We're not going to Virginia Beach. We're not going to the local tournaments. We're not going to the USA Wrestling regional tournaments. We're not going to the USA preseason nationals. We're not going to Super 32. Like, our program doesn't do that. I'm the only guy. And when you're the only guy, it's tough. Like, I was lucky enough to win state 3 times. I had 3 different coaches each of those years. And 2 of those years, my sophomore year, I had another guy win state when he was a senior. And my senior year, we had a guy that moved in, and we both won it. But my junior year, we were terrible. Like, our team was 3-8. We took 17th at state. We took 15th at state, and I took 17th at state by myself as a team. And my brother scored enough to get us to 15th. That was it. That boy, right? Top 15. But I'm saying, if I had a choice then to move, I probably would have. I mean, I had a huge advantage. My dad was a college coach, and I used to be able to work out with those guys whenever I could squeeze time in. So, but I wanted that. I wanted to go get my tail kicked, like working out with the Iowa State Grant Turner kind of guys. I mean, it was a junior college program, but I mean, my dad had a bunch of All-Americans on that team that were around my weight class and, were 4 or 5 years older than me. So it's super interesting that people, you see the coaches that are committed to it and things like this, right?
Yeah, also that also leverages us into the RTC and Olympic development realm of options, which more of the clubs are getting larger, and a lot of it was a lot based off of high school and or high school coaches or that influence that you had, right? So there wasn't maybe, let's say, all of the different clubs in your area at the time. It would either it would have been around programs, right? It would have been a collegiate program that you would have been able to like sneak into and been able to like wrestle with better guys, or maybe they allowed more adults into the room and the outside training, and maybe the coach did go on spring break and was like, hey, listen, I got some guys that can help you.
Sure.
So once again, I think people will find good training. People will find good coaching wherever they can, especially if they want to go and jump levels.
Yeah. Like, my dad used to do Tuesday, Thursday night practices, and all you needed was a USA Wrestling card. So shout out to USA Wrestling back then, but he wasn't charging people. He wasn't making Mirikitani train gear. He wasn't going to Fargo with all these guys. you know, he probably should have. It probably would have helped him immensely in recruiting, you know, but he was just doing it for the love of the sport. He was doing it to help kids genuinely get better. And people like myself were huge benefactors. Like, I mean, I remember, I think I've told this story before, but I remember in the 7th grade, my dad let me wrestle with the college guys, and they had literally nothing to gain. Like nothing. Like you lose to a 7th grader, like you're in therapy for a week. And if you beat a 7th grader, it's like big deal, right? And my dad, very quiet guy, very non-touchy. And he grabs my arm pretty hard before I walk out for the first go. And he goes, if you win, shut up. If you lose, shut up. And it took me a long time to really understand what he meant. But I think what he meant, I asked him later, was if you win, do not talk about it. And if you lose, do not complain about it. Because the only way you're going to earn respect is to just try as hard as you can and don't cry and don't brag if you got lucky. And it was great advice. Probably a corollary of explanation would have been helpful. But, you know, just keep your head down and grind. And a lot of those guys gave me, I didn't earn respect for how good I was, but I think I earned respect for how I handled, you know, getting my teeth kicked in. And they allowed me to work out with them. And that's where I jumped levels. As good as of a coach as my dad is, was, has been, will be, him giving me those training partners was probably twice as valuable as him teaching me how to correctly finish a single leg. Because if you have nobody to work out with, it doesn't matter. And if you have everybody to work out with, it doesn't matter. You'll figure it out if you want to win, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, those are some wise words right there that I'm just trying to kind of continually process as we're chatting. Because now I remember back in the day when I had some of those conversations with people, and it's like, yeah, just go about your business. Like, just go about your business.
Head down, eyes forward. Yeah. Yep. Well, I mean, let's use Grandview as an example. You guys have won 10 of the last 11, 11 of the last 12, 9 of the last 10. I don't know what the right numbers, but, you know, 90% of the last national titles, and second the year you didn't by a match or two.
Yep.
You have a ton of great coaches there. You've got guys that are really good at coaching. We're really good at wrestling. And I mean this as a compliment.
Okay.
Part of you guys coaching is putting a bunch of really good kids in the room. So, for example, if you have a kid, I come in, I'm a freshman, and I think I'm all that, and you know I stink on bottom, you just go put somebody on top of me that's going to ride me for 45 minutes. And I'm either going to figure it out, or I'm going to ask for help, or I don't want to win. It's one of those three. It has to be one of those three. You know, I'm either going to be like, okay, I guess I suck and I go home. I'm going to be like, well, I'm going to figure it out on my own, which is okay. It'll take longer, but okay, like, look, David's trying to figure it out. Or I go to Coach Turner, I go, hey, Grant Henderson is riding me like a mule. Could you please help make this torture stop? You know, like,
hey, there's a few times where you just basically say, hey, man, there are some times where it's like, hey, we've coached this up quite a bit. So now that you're having a whole bunch of trouble with it, you want to come back to the well and ask for help. It's like, well, we spent 4 weeks on this already, buddy. And you just ran into somebody that was way better than you at this. And you just were like, well, I felt I was good enough. Well, yeah. Mr. Henderson just exposed you to a whole new world of pain.
There's levels to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, no one can finish on me. It's like, well, until somebody does.
Until they can. Yeah.
Right. Until they can. Right. So you either need to start getting better partners in the room, or you need to start seeking out tougher competition. Because if you just keep going with the freshmen every year, yeah, of course you're going to look like an All-American every single day.
Right.
Well, go battle that other All-American over there in the corner that wants to wrestle you, that you've not wrestled the entire time.
Yeah, my dad used to call it readiness for learning. Like, you would see somebody, like, I'm older than you, so I'd be like, man, this Grant Turner is really good, but like, he can't get out of legs and he won't listen. And my dad will go, just wait. And I'm, what do you mean? Like, just wait, there's time. And we go to for our first big tournament was usually the Lindenwood Open. And we go there, and invariably some guy like a Grant Turner from Grandview or some NAI school as a senior ride the guy for 6.5 minutes. And then we would always have like these Sunday shake out the rust, get the lactic acid out of your body practices. And invariably, I mean, we didn't go hard. We never went live. It was just, like I said, shake it out. We used to take notes. I saw you guys doing this at the Life University Open on, hey, GT needs to work on this. Reedy needs to work on this. Mitchell needs to work on this, etc. And he goes, if that guy doesn't come back on Sunday now and want to get it, that's when we know he doesn't really want to learn. But now he knows. We were telling him, and frankly, he just didn't believe us, because he'd been good his whole life. And now he's not as good as he thought he was. And this is a pivot point, a turning point. And I think that's good for a lot of coaches to hear. Like, to be really good at something, you sort of have to have a belief in an unrealistic belief in yourself, right? Like, if we want to make this podcast the best, Joe Rogan has maybe the biggest podcast watching sports, right? And Joe Rogan had to have a belief in himself that he could do that. To believe you're going to be an Olympic champion, to believe you're going to be a world champion, to believe you're going to win 10 national titles in a row, these kind of things. Those are not sort of rational, right? Like, hey, there's 50 teams with wrestling. You have a 2% chance every year when it starts out, just mathematically. And then you're going to compound that and you start doing the math. Like, that can't happen, but it happens. It happens because people, the first thing they have to do is they have to believe in themselves. But sometimes that belief can be negative, right? Because like, you think you're so good, like as an athlete, so you're like, I'm good. I have this crazy, almost psychotic belief in myself. And then you get exposed. And that's really, like, I think for me, like, I was that way and I got to college and it's probably my own fault, but I think if somebody just put their arm around me and said, everybody goes through this. Like, this is just part of leveling up. I think if somebody had one conversation with me there like that, it would have changed things for me.
Right.
So all the kids that are either going from junior high to high school, from JV to varsity, from freshman to JV, from high school to college, from backup to starter, because I'm sure you're not going to have the same 12 starters you had last year. Everybody goes through this, guy. It's like, it's part of the grind. It's part of the process. So anyway, let's see what's next here. I believe we want to talk about the seeds. So let me pull this up. Okay, if you're watching at home, these are the women's seeds. So GT, a couple things for people to understand that we have talked about, but if you're first time or jumping around with us, they've done a couple things to make the seeding at the Worlds, we think, better, or at least at the very least more Americanized. One, it's not a random draw anymore. Two, it's not 4 anymore. It's down to 8 in terms of the number of seeds. And 3 is their weighted bracket. And what we mean by that is if there's 24 people, there's 12 in each half, there's 6 in each quarter bracket, where it used to just be they like started at the top or the bottom, and one side had all the buys and the other one didn't. Am I explaining that correctly?
Correct.
Okay. Is it also fair to say that I remember this in the prep for the year I did the commentary for the Worlds, that the World Championships are significantly bigger in terms of number of entries over the Olympics, because the Olympics only have 16 and the Worlds, I saw brackets were like 40 or 50. Is that correct?
Yeah, World Championships are a lot more, I would say, heavily weighted with more participants. So you're going to have a lot more, whatever it is, round of 32 or round of 64 type matches, when the Olympic Games is basically your final 16 no matter what.
Right. Yeah. And somebody did the math. They were talking about once you're in the Olympics, you can either make it to the semis and obviously have a chance to medal, or you can beat by somebody who makes it to the finals. And they were going through the math of that. And I think it was like a 6 out of 16 chance, just by the pure numbers of it. So, but the one thing that is the same is if you lose, you have to get pulled. Your athlete, the person that beat you has to make the finals to get pulled through into the backside, correct?
Yeah, to make finals.
Yeah. So this is on USA Wrestling, themat.com, teamusa.org, and they also put a link to Eric Olenowski's article on UWW. So shout out to Eric. 50 kilos women. Sarah Hildebrandt's the number 1 seed. So this is like Wimbledon always has weird stuff, but in wrestling, this is normal. She'd wrestle the 8 in the quarters and the winner of the 4-5 in the semis. I don't know if you know about Sarah's head-to-head with any of these people, but it feels like being on the opposite side of Susaki is very good for her, correct?
Yeah. I mean, at the 50 kilo, I mean, Susaki is, I believe, the Olympic champion at 50. But still, Hildy's got more like whatever UWW points, so therefore
right.
that she's in the lead for the seed because she's wrestled a lot more.
But just her doing that, getting away from Susaki, like she probably wouldn't be the gambling favorite in the finals, but if they were to meet, but just being able to make the finals without having to wrestle her is a win in itself, correct?
Correct. I mean, once again, any sort of separation, being like the 3-4 is also extremely important. Whatever it is, that 5-6 is also just getting on in the top half or the bottom half of the bracket. So,
right. Yeah, for sure. So, and we should say this right now, Russia is not in the tournament at all because of the political stuff going on with Ukraine. And that's going to come to play, frankly, a lot more in the men's freestyle and the Greco-Roman. Not to say that, Russian women aren't good, but the power to beat in the world level is Japan, not Russia at the women's tournament, correct?
Yeah, Russia's always, lingering in the top 5. I mean, they definitely have like a perennial look. They always will have, ladies that are extremely talented. But yes, with Russia and Belarus not being able to participate, you'll see maybe some other countries creep up into the top 10, top 5 that maybe would have never been there in previous years.
And that starts with the seeding, obviously, because for example, if there was a Russian that would have been the top 6 in the seeding here, then Dom Parrish would be down one more, go from 7 to 8. So Dom Parrish is the 7. So that puts her on the bottom side of the bracket. She would have the 2 in the quarters and the 3-6 winner in the semis. But again, separates her from the number 1 seed, the Japanese athlete, right?
Correct.
So Parrish's first trip to the Worlds, is this if you're her or Mark Perry Jr., are you pretty happy about the pre-seed on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like a great place. I mean, once again, first time to the tournament, being seeded, not getting drawn into maybe a crazy bout right off the bat. Having a seed, as a 7, I mean, you have somebody that you've already seen probably in Samantha Stewart from Canada as the 3. So she makes it there. I'm sure that, Dom's wrestled a few of these other girls. Emma from Sweden, I believe she's wrestled. And then Maria Prevalarki, two-time Olympian for Greece, world medalist, escaping her and kind of edging her out on the point system. It's good to get a little bit of that separation from maybe being the 8 and then running into, world champ. So,
yeah. That's awesome. Okay, 55, Jakara's the 4. We know how good she is. Is there a reason? Well, I guess there is a reason. What is the reason, if you know, why there's no Japanese athlete seated here?
That would be Mayu Mukaida, who is the Olympic champion at 53. So you can already see that the number 1 seed at 53 is Akari Fujinami. And then basically Mukaida is then moving up from 53, which was the Olympic weight class. So okay. She is an Olympic champion at 53, moving up to 55, but she has 0 points at 55 because she hasn't wrestled at that weight class. So she'll be the representative because she won the Japanese trials at that weight. But you'll have probably her at 55, which will then be drawn in.
So she might be the best person, and just, kind of hope that she gets drawn into the bottom side of the bracket, correct?
I mean, once again, if you're an Olympic champion, you're the bad draw. So no matter where you go.
Yeah, right.
Like, guess what? I don't care who I have. And once again, that's going back to the old school system where all of a sudden you're like, hey, they got to wrestle me too. So,
yeah.
I mean, we'll see how it all shakes out.
Helen is the number 1 seed at 57. Probably the same situation there. Japanese athlete, I'm assuming. Is it a similar situation to 55?
I don't know enough about the 57 weight class.
Okay.
I mean, I believe that would have been Kawhi. But either way, whoever is going to be representing the country of Japan is probably going to be pretty talented. But I don't think that they've traveled a lot in order to achieve points.
Right.
So Akari and Susaki basically were world champions the previous year. That gives them enough points to be kind of seeded regardless.
Right.
From Oslo. So.
And Helen is putting out some outstanding TikTok videos about just top 100%. Flight stuff, right?
Yep.
Okay. We're not seated at 59. Kayla gets seated at 62 as the 3. And, obviously that we talked about that wrestle off, but she would have been seated or would have been seated higher than Jen Rogers-Page or Paige Rogers would have been based on her points coming into this, correct?
Correct. Based off of her previous world championships and then also all of the UWW ranking series points that she would have had, because she would have been the representative, I think, at Pan Am's and would have scored points there. So I mean, Kayla having the 3 seed here is actually a really, really good spot for her. Once again, that's a really good draw for her. I think that's a really good place for her to be in the bracket.
She's on the bottom, and Ozaki and the 1 seed are both on the top. So,
yep.
65, Velte's the 8. Not ideal here. She'd get Morikawa in the quarters, but I mean, she beat Forrest. If you can beat Forrest, you can pretty much go with anybody in the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, once again, also in the theory of international wrestling, if you're going to lose to somebody that's going to be really good. So I would think that Morikawa would make finals, which would then pull back Velte into a match if she ends up losing. If she wins, then she's set up for success as, basically taking over that spot.
Nice. Okay, Mensa Stock, Olympic champ, number 2 seed here at 68. And again, Japanese athlete not seeded, but probably have a hammer in waiting. And then at 72 and 76, we have new athletes. So that changes things. Where in terms of we're like an Adeline Gray has just, been a top seeded and top medaling athlete for years here. So let me stop presenting. Then let me go to the men's one. Okay, so again, Eric Olanowski, another article here that is referred to by USA Wrestling. So Gilman's the 1, Kumar's the 2. Gilman is on the same side as the Iranian, which for team. Now you made a prediction a couple months ago that USA would win men's freestyle. These head-to-head, do you feel like if the USA doesn't win it, that Iran is probably the number 1 threat to doing so?
Yeah, I think, they've proven, the Iranians have proven that they have some young up-and-coming guys, and some of those other, journeyman guys like Yazdani and, Mohammadi are back in a big way. So I think it's going to be, a very, very good and tight race. I think also Georgia and Turkey have the ability to score a ton of points. But I think it's going to come down to the U.S. versus Iran for the title, I think.
So this match would have huge implications, obviously. So,
right.
Yeah. Okay. 61, Seth Gross. Not a shock that he is unseated, not because he's not good, just because, he wasn't the American wrestling in a lot of these events and didn't have enough time to accumulate points. If you could draw him in, like what's the best path for him? Maybe that's not a fair question.
Well, I think the biggest thing for, I would say, Seth Gross is, regardless of who he wrestles, even if he gets drawn in and has the 1 seed or if he has the 2 seed, does not matter really, because Gross is going to do what he does, right? I don't think that there's, let's say, a proper path for him, like where he's, and once again, his first time on a senior world team doesn't mean that he's, completely unknown. He's wrestled internationally before. He's wrestled other international athletes,
right?
But once again, he's a weird feel, right? So, Otley's a journeyman. He'd be one that I'd probably try to like stay away from, just because he's been there forever. And he's up at 61, who's normally a 57 kg guy. Rei Higuchi is extremely talented. I think he's maybe a little bit underseeded, but once again, I think that the Japanese teams have not traveled to go and get extra points. So, once again, I think Seth Gross is primed for whatever kind of wild run that he can make and just see what happens.
His mentality, he came on Matt Chat and he's doing like the caveman diet, and he talked about not getting tired, and he talked about winning at Final X in Stillwater, really respectful of Dayton Fix and those fans, but just how he felt like that is good preparation for going overseas. Certainly nothing is identical, but really good frame of mind. Marriage seems to be agreeing with him. So, and he is extremely likable. Like when you talk to him, it's kind of hard to not root for that guy. So 65, our representative's Yanni. I won't talk a lot about this weight because we'll get to it more as we get close, but like he's wrestled Aliyev, he's wrestled Bajrang, Musakayev, we know, was the one that, knocked J.O. out of the last chance. Sebastian Rivera is the 3 seed. And I think most people would pick Yanni to beat Sebastian Rivera in a freestyle match. So, shout out to Rivera for getting those points, but it feels like that might be an ideal kind of draw if you're Yanni, right?
Yeah, I think, I think if Dayton or I'd say Yanni is on the bottom of this bracket, I think he has a way better opportunity to, let's say, make finals. He's wrestled Bajrang, at the Beat the Streets event.
Right.
That's a great matchup, I think, just based styles clashing a little bit. But even if he goes on the top, he wrestled Musakayev at I believe in it, like Yasser Doe maybe 2 years ago, and he was like gassing him out.
Yeah, that's the one where he just literally passed out. Yeah.
Right. But once again, I think with Yanni, he's wrestled really well. He had the ability to come back on Evan Henderson in that one match and basically and sneak one out, right? So, once again, in these tournaments, it's not best 2 out of 3; it's just 1 of 1, right? So, he better bring his A game, because once again, the 65 kg weight class is still looking for a world medalist for a while now.
Since Bill Zadek, right? Something like that.
Bill Zadek was the last one, I believe, at this weight class to medal. The last guy that was in a match to even medal was Frank Molinaro at the 2016 Olympic Championships, where he had to wrestle Frank Chamizo for that medal.
Yeah, and he lost by like 2 inches, his knee touching the ground, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, so 70 kilos, Zane, and we'll keep it moving here because we kind of got to wrap things up. But Zane's the 3, the little Yazdani is the 5. Interesting, there's no 8 seed here. I don't know if that's a typo or not, but Zane gets on the bottom side of the bracket, which probably is better for him. You would probably know better than me. Is that pretty good for what we would hope here?
Yeah, I think that once again, I think there's a lot of talent at 70 kg in general. I think there's a lot of guys that have kind of been around, but I like him at 6. I think that, when he wrestled the Armenian, I think the gentleman from Georgia, Once again, I don't want to butcher his name, but it's like Jakob Bishvili.
Better than I would have known. Go ahead.
So anyways, I know that he's extremely talented guy from Georgia. So I think, having a good match against the three, maybe getting to the semis, sets him up for success for a one match thing to get into the finals. So that's if everything goes correctly for him. Of course, like Zane is wrestling extremely well. And once again, at a kind of a newer weight class at 70, because James Green, shout out to my boy, has been the mainstay there for a long time.
Yeah. So this is the changing of the guard, and so whether it was Zane, there's another guy that won in enemy territory, beat J.O. in Gallagher-Iba. So 74, Dake is the 1, probably the name that most people recognize. Chamizo is the 3, and Fine Silver, wrestling for Israel, is the 8. This feels like it's about as good as it can be for Dake, correct?
Yeah, with Dake being up on the top, the Iranian, of course, is always going to be a tough match. Seeded 5. On the bottom side, that is a gauntlet. Solikanov from Slovakia. He was the world finalist against Dake last year. He takes Sabulov, formerly Russian, now Serbian. He was a 74 kg representative for Russia multiple times. Demiritosh, he's been the guy for Turkey forever. Extremely talented world medalist, just multiple time world medalist. So that bottom side plus Chamizo, that is a meat grinder. That weight class is stacked.
JB 79, 1 seed, Iranian 2, Greece 3. JB going for historical medal here. So, we'll do more deep dive, but again, you're about as good as you can be when you're the 1 seed. 86. I think what points out to me, what I'm thought of, and, obviously we love Miles Amin. He, wrestles here in America, but he's San Marino in these world championships. 2 things pop out to me. 1, Yazdani and Taylor feel like they're kind of on another level from everybody else. And 3 is kind of where would, like a Bo Nickel or a Zahid Valencia be seated? Because, they have wins over a lot of these guys. So, do you see anything stopping Yazdani, Taylor? I guess it's number 5 or 6 match now.
Well, the younger gentleman from Azerbaijan, once again, not going to try to. I would try to not butcher his name.
I'll try that. Abakarov.
Yeah, Abakarov. He's slick.
Okay.
Deepak Punya, also world silver medalist. Not that they're ever going to hold a candle to, let's say, Yazdani, but they're not without talent, right? So,
right.
So Yazdani's just that great. I think he's just that big of a step up in that world. But these guys do have some credentials.
Yeah.
Not to be taken lightly, but I think Yazdani goes and we have another David versus Yazdani match.
Yeah, I think if you're from America, you're hoping Taylor wins and Amin gets bronze. So 92, our guy Cox is the 2, or the 3, excuse me. So on the same side as the 2, he'd have the 7, the Georgian, and the 6. My gosh, he'd have the Kazakhstan in the quarters and Azerbaijan in the semis, and Ghazimpur from Iran in the finals. Jaden's obviously as good, if not better than any of these guys. He's just got to get to his offense and try not to let it be a 2-1, 3-2 match. Correct?
Yeah. I just think that this weight class is for a non-Olympic weight class, this is extremely talented weight with a lot of depth. Kind of in between that 86 and 97 kilo area, there's some very, very talented gentlemen. Once again, we could go a deep dive and go complete nerding out on medalists and things like that. But I think Jaden and Ghazimpur, I think that's your finals, just because I think Jaden is going to come back with a vengeance and want to be back on top. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Jaden Cox we see in Serbia.
Yeah, will we see bald Jaden or slightly shaved? You know, I like bald Jaden the best, but you know, obviously it's his choice. Snyder's the one. Here's the winner of Ukraine, Iran in the semis, and Kazakhstan in the quarters. We will keep it moving here. And then at heavyweight or 125, Petrashvili and Akgul and Zare are the 1, 2, 3. So this is one time where seeding doesn't, you know, it's fair, but it doesn't necessarily help America, because there used to be a possibility like where all three of those guys would be on one side and you could sort of luck out and get into the other. So, you know, Zilmer showed how good he could be at the World Team Trials, wrestling Gwiz, who's a perennial medalist, certainly top 5, top 6 guy. First time there, his draw, he'll probably be very draw dependent, you know, unless he can pull an upset. So anything else before we sign off, GT?
No, just once again, it's championship season for USA Wrestling. Very cool to see the U20 results, age category. Looking forward to the seniors. Once again, the seniors are kind of the pinnacle of our sport, where that's the pros of the pros and everything. So just extremely excited for that. Once again, I think we're about a week and a half away from World Championships. So start catching up on your sleep and being ready to watch some wrestling. So exciting times.
Yeah. One of the best experiences of my life was doing that for 9 days straight. I want to thank Shane Sparks for helping me get that, and the guys at Track Wrestling for getting us on the air. But that was 9 days straight from midnight to sort of 10 a.m. our time in front of a green screen, you know, and then it's a very weird thing. You go back to your hotel room and you basically have to put on the do not disturb. And try to figure out how to sleep probably from like 11 to 6, if that's possible. So, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was awesome. So, for Mark, who's not with us, for Grant, the best hair in wrestling media, David, not the best hair in media. We'll speak to y'all next week.